I want to start by saying I am not someone who believes in things easily. I grew up in a household where my father was an engineer and my mother was a registered nurse, and between the two of them, they had an explanation for everything. Creaking houses were thermal expansion. Strange dreams were stress responses. I carried that framework with me into adulthood like a tool I trusted completely. I was 23 when I took the overnight position at Walmart Supercenter number 3341 in Clarksville, Tennessee. It was a second job. I was working days at a distribution warehouse and picking up 4 overnight shifts a week at Walmart to cover rent on an apartment I'd just moved into alone for the first time. The overnight team there was bigger than I'd expected, maybe 8 or 9 people on a full night, but we were spread across a large store, and most of the time you went long stretches without seeing another person. That was fine with me. I liked the quiet. I liked the predictability of it. Same tasks, same aisles, same rhythms every night. There was comfort in that. The store had a section called the seasonal aisle. In late October, it was Halloween merchandise, and by the first week of November, it had been cleared and was in the process of being restocked with early Christmas product. That transition period, those few days where the aisle is half cleared and half filled, was always a little strange looking. Skeleton decorations and cobwebs on one end, red and green tinsel and pre-lit wreath boxes on the other, the whole aisle caught between two identities. I mention this because the seasonal aisle is where it started, and I think the way it looked that week matters to the story in a way I can't fully articulate. My first few weeks on the job were uneventful in the way that good jobs are uneventful. I learned my section, which was home goods and small appliances. I learned the other team members by name. I learned that the break room microwave took exactly 90 seconds longer than it claimed on every setting. We were largely self-directed, which suited everyone fine. The overnight manager was a heavyset man named Curtis who made rounds every hour and a half and was otherwise unreachable because he spent his time doing inventory counts in the back office. The first thing I noticed happened on a Wednesday night in the second week of November. I was restocking a pallet of small kitchen appliances, box fans, and coffee makers when I passed the entrance to the seasonal aisle to grab a new roll of shelf labels from the supply cart. The aisle was dark. This was not unusual. The overnight crew had the ability to kill individual aisle lighting to make it easier to see stock labels without the glare, and we did it often, but I hadn't turned that aisle off, and when I looked down toward the far end of it, I saw that the Christmas product that had been stocked on the right-hand side, boxes of ornaments, strings of lights, a row of pre-lit wreath boxes, was arranged differently than it had been 2 hours earlier. Specifically, the wreath boxes had been moved from the middle shelf to the floor, and they were lined up in a row down the center of the aisle, evenly spaced, like someone had set them out deliberately, like place settings at a table. I stood at the entrance of the aisle for a moment, looking at them in the dim light from the main floor, and then I walked down to the far end and checked that no one was there. No one was. I restacked the boxes, killed the aisle light back on, and went to find the team member assigned to seasonal to let her know the product had been disturbed. She told me she hadn't been in that aisle since 10 o'clock. It was now 20 past 2 in the morning. Over the following week, the wrongness in the seasonal aisle continued, individually minor and collectively suffocating. Products moved from one shelf to another in ways that didn't match any restocking logic. A string of Christmas lights that had been boxed and shelved was found unboxed, the lights themselves pulled out and draped across the top of the shelving unit, unlit. A set of decorative candle holders was arranged on the floor in a tight circle, facing inward, as if surrounding something that was no longer there. Each time it was reported to Curtis. Each time Curtis walked the aisle, found nothing, and attributed it to stock team members doing their jobs sloppily or to boxes shifting during freight delivery. My best working theory was that someone was coming in through a delivery entrance and using the store after hours, a homeless person maybe. The store was receiving an unusually heavy freight load that week, and we were all working harder than normal, moving fast, nobody standing still long enough to think about seasonal aisle mysteries. I was deep in home goods around 3 in the morning when Curtis came to find me. He didn't look alarmed exactly, but he had a quality to his face that I'd never seen there before, a careful blankness that people wear when they're deciding how much of what they're feeling to show. He told me the security camera covering the seasonal aisle had gone dark, not gone offline in a technical sense. The camera was still powered, still transmitting, still recording. The footage it was recording from 1:45 onward was complete darkness, as if something was directly in front of the lens, a foot away, blocking it entirely. Curtis had checked the camera physically. Nothing was blocking it. The lens was clean and unobstructed. He'd pulled the footage and watched the moment of transition himself. One frame, the aisle was visible and empty. The next frame, black. No motion in between, no approach. The darkness simply appeared. I followed Curtis to the back office and watched the footage myself. He was describing it accurately. The camera showed an empty seasonal aisle under normal lighting. The timestamp was 1:47:23 a.m. At 1:47:24 a.m., the frame was black. Total, complete, immediate black, with no transition, no blur, no shape moving across the frame. And the footage had continued recording in that blackness for 1 hour and 11 minutes before Curtis noticed and came to find me, which meant that whatever caused it had been there, in front of that camera, standing still, for over an hour. I told Curtis we needed to leave the aisle alone and call someone. He agreed faster than I expected, which told me he'd already arrived at the same place I was arriving and had just needed someone else to say it first. We closed the entrance to the seasonal aisle. The flatbed cart pushed sideways across the gap, a flimsy barrier but a visible one, something we'd both noticed being moved. We went back to work. I want to say that confidently, that we went back to work, but what I mean is that we returned to our sections and performed the physical motions of work while thinking about almost nothing except the seasonal aisle and what was in it. At 4:15 in the morning, I heard the flatbed cart move. I was 3 aisles away. The sound was unmistakable, the specific metallic scrape of a heavy flatbed shifting on a polished floor. I stood perfectly still for 3 seconds, and then I walked toward the seasonal aisle from the main thoroughfare side, the long way around, so I could see the entrance from a distance before I got close. The flatbed was still in place. It had not been moved aside, but it was sitting at an angle slightly different from how Curtis and I had positioned it, as if it had been pushed from the inside and then settled back. I called out to Curtis by name. My voice sounded strange in the store, too loud and also somehow not loud enough. He came from the back office at a near jog, and when he reached me, I pointed at the cart and he understood immediately. The lighting was on, the same flat Walmart fluorescence as everywhere else. The aisle appeared empty. The shelving on both sides was undisturbed, and at the very far end of the aisle, at the back wall where the clearance Halloween merchandise had been pushed to make room for Christmas stock, there was a shape standing in the corner that was not a shelving unit. It had the vertical orientation of something upright, but nothing else that matched anything I could name. It was darker than the corner it stood in, which was already in partial shadow, which meant it was either casting its own darkness or existing at a depth the store's lighting could not reach. I looked at it for what was probably 5 seconds, but registered as much longer, and during those 5 seconds it did not move at all, not even the subtle micro-movement that all living bodies make simply by existing, the slight shift of breathing, the minute adjustment of balance. It was completely, absolutely still. Curtis grabbed my arm and pulled me backward, and I went without resistance. We moved to the back of the store, through the receiving doors, and stood in the parking lot in the cold November dark. Curtis called 911, not the store manager, not the district security line. He called 911 and told the dispatcher there was an intruder in the store. 2 units arrived within 8 minutes. The officers performed a full sweep, every aisle, every corner, the stockroom, the receiving area, the bathrooms, the garden center. The seasonal aisle was empty. The Halloween merchandise in the back corner was stacked neatly against the wall. There was no shape. There was nothing in the corner. The officers found nothing anywhere in the store. In their report, they noted that the back corner of the seasonal aisle showed a smudge pattern on the wall consistent with prolonged contact, as if something had leaned against it for an extended period. They photographed it. The photograph shows a dark, vaguely vertical smear on the pale wall at a height and width that did not match a human silhouette in any proportion that made sense. The lead officer asked us twice if we were certain the store had been properly closed at 11. We were certain. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the following Monday. Curtis had already submitted his. I don't know what the store told the day crew or the district management or anyone else. I don't know if the seasonal aisle footage was ever explained or the wall smear ever analyzed. What I know is that my father's framework, the one built from engineering logic and medical training and a lifetime of finding rational ground under every strange thing, developed a crack that night that I have never been able to fill back in. I haven't tried very hard. I think some cracks exist for a reason. I think some things stand in corners and wait to be seen, and the explanation for what they are is not one that engineering or medicine ever accounted for. The Christmas lights that had been unboxed and draped across the shelving unit. I keep coming back to that detail from earlier in the month, before any of us understood what we were dealing with. Someone, or something, had taken the lights out of the box and arranged them carefully, the way you would if you were decorating, the way you would if you were making a space feel like home. I don't sleep well with that thought, but I've stopped trying to explain it away, and in a strange and unsettling sense, that is its own kind of peace.